After Sandy Hook, the threat was AR-15s. After Las Vegas, it was bump stocks. Now, gun foes in America have discovered a new danger to you and your family. Yes, muzzle loaders, just like the ones they used at the Battle of Bunker Hill. Former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords' anti-gun group has released a new report warning that muzzle loaders, we're not making this up, could be, quote, the next bump stock because they are largely unregulated by the government. This is a shift from just a few years ago when liberals conceded that at least muzzle loaders were protected by the Second Amendment.
Republicans like to pretend that their interpretations of the Constitution are based on the original intent of the words. They insist that what matters is what the authors of those words had in mind. They think of themselves as mind readers of the Founding Fathers. Well, this is what they had in mind when they wrote the Second Amendment, a single-shot firearm that takes a bit of work to reload.
Jumaane Williams is a city councilman in New York, possibly the next mayor of that city in 4 years. Who knows? He joins us tonight. Mr. Councilman, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the plug.
What's so amazing to me is typically when you have a lobby in Washington on a subject, lobbying for agriculture, for example, they know a lot about farming. It's only the anti-gun lobby, the gun control people, who literally know nothing about the product they're trying to ban. What could possibly be the justification for banning muzzle loaders?
Well, you know, unfortunately, if you had me on every time there was a mass shooting, it might be every night. But I'm glad to be on here. What you left out is there's actually a company that's trying to jump through a loophole like people do and create a muzzle that can be shot with a silencer that shoots 50 caliber bullets. That can do a lot of damage. Let's say the DC sniper wanted to do something. All we need is one bullet to kill someone. And what we're doing now is actually trying to have a conversation before, because every time we bring it up right after a shooting, you always say now is not the time. And what I come to believe is that we just don't want to have the conversation at all.
So how many crimes do you think in the last, I don't know, 100 years have been committed with muzzle loaders?
Well, once this new muzzle is created, we just don't know. But what you do a great job in, and it works for you, so I'm not saying you should stop. You do a great job of focusing on these single things when we really need to have
facts? Yeah, that is kind of my trade.
No, it's not facts. It's just avoidance of a conversation about guns, and you do it very well.
Well, actually, I'd very much like to have a conversation about guns. So here you have Gabby Giffords' group saying that we need to regulate a rifle, a firearm they clearly know nothing about. A muzzle loader is loaded from the muzzle, from the end of the barrel, the hole where the bullet comes out. And you put in the powder, and then the wadding, and then the round.
But what I'm saying is,
and the whole thing takes like a minute. So it's not probably going to be responsible for a lot of mass shootings.
Well, a silencer
it's so crazy.
A silencer and a 50 caliber bullet means that one person can die. And we're trying to talk about preventative. And you don't want us to talk about reactionary. But the biggest issue is...
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Hold on. Yeah, I know you're a gun expert, so you maybe can explain this to me. Why would a silencer have... What does a silencer have to do with it? Silencers
because if you were the DC sniper, perhaps you want to shoot a gun that nobody can hear so you can get away.
But silencers or suppressors don't make a gunshot inaudible. You can still hear it really well.
I think they really do help.
No, they don't. I've shot them in a 50 caliber round will still make a lot of noise.
You're good at it. Let's even say I grant you that. But the biggest... No, I will. Because the bigger conversation is there is an avoidance of a conversation of how the overabundance of guns in this country is correlated to gun violence.
No, I'm trying to have this conversation in specific terms rather than in bumper sticker terms where we make gross generalizations and we get away with that. So I'd like to just bring it back to the tangible, which here's an actual firearm that an actual gun control group is trying to regulate. And my question is why?
Sure.
They're the least threatening firearm you could honestly pick out of the full range of firearms. So that suggests to me that people making this recommendation literally know nothing, and they just expose themselves as wholly ignorant.
We should start from the macro.
Guns.
What they do know is that the United States makes up 4% of the population, but own almost half of the guns in the entire world. What they do know is that there's a correlation between countries that have access to guns and gun violence. What they do know is that you are no more likely to be robbed in America than you are in London, but you're exponentially more likely to be killed because of the access to guns. And so what we need to do is have a
no, it's actually a fairly complex question as to why that is. But let's get back to the specific.
Recent studies showed when you adjust for population, the number one thing that tells you whether a country is likely to have mass shootings is the access to guns.
Right. But let me, I mean, I don't concede that point because it's silly, but let me just get back to the specific point here. No, it's speculative. But But what's not speculative is that an actual gun control group is trying to ban a gun that is responsible for precisely no crimes, no mass shootings, and takes almost a full minute to reload one shot.
What's not speculative?
That suggests to me that the goal is not safety. The goal is disarming the population.
No, I'm trying to save lives. What are you trying to do?
Well, how many lives have been taken by muzzle loaders?
Well, we're trying to prevent that. You don't even want to do that.
Well, I don't think there's any evidence that it's ever happened or it ever will happen.
So we shouldn't talk about it after mass shooting. We shouldn't talk about it before someone jumps through a loophole.
So
when should we talk about it?
Describe what a mass shooting by a muzzleloader would look like.
I said when should we talk about it? If we can't talk about it after mass shooting,
it's going to happen with a musket.
No one will be killed by a musket that can shoot 50 calibers.
If it does, okay.
But also the biggest thing, which is not speculative, you won't even acknowledge that perhaps a country that has 4% of the population and owns over half the guns in the country.
That's an interesting conversation, but when you bring muskets into it, it kind of discredits, I would say, your side. And by the way, to be fair, the councilman we're talking to did not think up this crackpot idea that was former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. Councilman, we're out of time. When you run for mayor, I hope you come back and we can debate muskets. Thank you.